say you Blade Runner.
Tell him I'm eating.
Better take those noodles to go. 1982's Blade Runner is considered by many to be one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made. Known to have a very strange and somewhat controversial history, this film helped set the stage for many future dystopian, cyberpunk, neo-noir, and of course science fiction stories. So it's only natural we break down Rick Deckard's look throughout this movie. Originally, this video was going to cover both Rick Deckard and Officer K from both Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. However, the length crept well over 30 minutes long. That being said, it was decided to split them for both the sake of time and fluidity. Fret not though, as K's video will soon be ready to go as well. Now with that out of the way, let's focus on Deckard. Based on Philip K. Dick's 1968 novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the original movie follows Rick Deckard, a Blade Runner, the title given to members of a special detective unit of the Los Angeles Police Department. These officers are tasked with hunting down, identifying, and retiring, aka killing, any rogue or fugitive androids known as replicants. Throughout the movie, very few members of the unit are seen. That, coupled with them essentially being detectives, makes it safe to say that there is no formal uniform standard for them as opposed to the officers seen patrolling the streets. So that makes this video our first one in which we technically won't be covering a uniform or piece of one, but rather an outfit. Anyway, since 1982, Blade Runner has gone through quite a bit. Aside from its long, problematic, and peculiar production, it has also seen a lot of changes, even after the initial release. We're of course referring to the 7 different cuts of the film. This has led to the film gaining a sort of air of mystery and intrigue, from all the production turmoil to watching all the cuts and identifying set pieces and props. The movie has gained quite a following and fan base for numerous reasons. Though it has gone through a number of changes since it premiered, be they minor or major, what remains the same are Deckard's outfits. Due to the various scenes and cuts showing different outfits, we're going to primarily focus on his look while he's on the job. So we won't be covering the more sober scenes when he's in his apartment, when he runs away with Rachel, the infamous Countryside Road ending seen in the original 82 version, or his more defeated and worn down look seen in the sequel movie, which, now we're just speculating here, was Harrison's idea, because he really loves his gray t-shirts. No, really. This just seems to be his go-to look. But anyway, back to the original movie. The main differences between Deckard's on-the-job looks primarily come down to different shirts, ties, and pants. So we'll cover the pieces seen being worn with every version of his outfit, and then cover the specifics. Okay, so let's start down at his feet with his shoes. Like many of his costume pieces, people for years obsessed over identifying them, but thanks to the release on DVD and Blu-ray, many new details could be seen. His shoes were actually off-the-shelf referee trainers, specifically Adidas officials. These were a special edition made around the time of the production and intended for basketball referees. For the film, the gold lettering was removed and those shoes were aged. Finally, the standard black laces were replaced with rounder brown-colored ones. Your best option is to go for a pair of Adidas Stan Smiths, not to be confused with Stan Smith from the Seth MacFarlane cartoon show American Dad, which coincidentally also has special edition shoes named after him. Anyway though, just ensure you get a pair that's all black, they are very close in design and look, and just switch the laces. Alternatively, the company Magnoli Clothiers recently added the option to have tailored replicas made on their website. Though they go for quite a bit, they are perhaps the most accurate option out there. You'll be hearing a lot of that company as they offer quite a large number of high-quality Blade Runner items. With the writers and creative team really diving into the style of 40s detectives like Sam Spade from The Maltese Falcon, Philip Marlowe from The Big Sleep, among various others, and Martin Caine from radio and later on TV shows, they wanted to take the sharp but slightly disheveled look of a private detective and essentially give it a futuristic look. The first big task was the iconic Trenchcoat. Known for its tall ribbed collar, wide cuffs, and large buttons, this is what gave Deckard his memorable look. Online you can find tons of these ranging in price and quality. Though many look pretty good, to get the most accurate you'll need to dish out a bit of money. A number of forum members from various prop websites have made a few runs of the jacket, with one of the most recognizable being Abbey Shot. Though they're not being made anymore, they do occasionally pop up for sale. Again, perhaps the most accurate and easiest to source out there is the one offered by Magnoli. But if you're on a budget, the USA jacket version, others found on eBay or online usually are pretty close as well. When searching through sites, be sure to actually see the coat, as many websites will take pictures of fans wearing other versions or simply lift pictures from elsewhere and pass it off as their own. Next up is his sports jacket he wears underneath. This was an interesting orange color and was made up of a rough woven silk in a herringbone weave. Being that it was likely custom made for the movie, you're going to have a bit of a hard time locating an exact one. Ideally, you can search for similar style coats as far as material, then modify it. Many have located a white jacket, then dyed them. Alternatively, Magnoli also offers a very close reproduction on their site. Moving on, we have the items he presumably had on him at all times, which were his watch, wallet with ID, holster, and finally blaster. So, starting with the watch, it was a Microma PVD with a black and gold finish. These LCD watches featured a basic digital display with one button on the left and two on the right. Though they still occasionally go up for sale today, the proper one with the black finish is quite rare. The silver and gold versions do come up more frequently though, but regardless, still expect to pay a bit of money, and understand that they likely have a bunch of scratches, signs of wear, sometimes a different band, and very frequently a damaged or non-working display. Next up is his wallet, which is perhaps the one prop in the movie with the largest level of intrigue and mystery surrounding it. Seen only a handful of times throughout the film, it is always shown obscured by either his hand, other people or objects, and finally the wallet itself. The original screen-used ones seem to have dropped off the face of the earth shortly after the movie's release. Over the years, people have claimed to have encountered it, with some even saying they were able to replicate it. However, the actual screen-used wallet seems to have never been fully vetted, seen, or photographed beyond the original filming. That is, before the Final Cut home release in 2007. Included in one of the special featurettes is an outtake of Harrison Ford fumbling with the wallet inside a spinner. This brief clip gave viewers a general view of the three sections of the wallet, but still not an entirely open and detailed one. It did show that there was no badge, but being that there were apparently 3 wallets made, and the look of them changing slightly from scene to scene still has many people wondering a few different things. What is known though is that the wallet itself is a trifold design, with the left section having a plastic slot to show off his ID. Additionally, the wallet carried a keycard to unlock his apartment door, and based on concept art seen in other special features, there was a VidPhone account card. For years, people have tried to figure out what was in his wallet, what it looked like, and so on. So this has spawned a sort of pseudo list of props one would find in Deckard's wallet. They include a credit card, a VidPhone card, a Voight-Kampff operator card, money, receipts to the White Dragon, business cards, and so on. Being that one can't 100% verify the exact look, or even if they were in there, picking versions is entirely up to you. You'll just want to pay close attention to how the cards are made, as often they'll vary from very low quality laminations to mid-range plastic cards, all the way up to high quality cards that border on the same level as real-world IDs and credit cards. However, at some point there seems to have been a deviation in the consensus, with one group believing that a badge was found in the middle section and another that didn't. However, again due to that brief clip, the belief has dropped some, but still can't be 100% dismissed. As far as what the supposed badge looked like, has been open to interpretation. Some people prefer the traditional LAPD badge, like this one, while others think it was based on in-universe ones which featured Deckard's face in the middle. Whichever way you go, they are readily available online. As far as the wallet itself, depending on if you're doing the badge or not will dictate the style. For the badged route, you'll need one that has a blank middle where you can attach them. These are easily found through police and tactical supply sites, or simply on eBay or Amazon. For the in-universe style, the best offer based on the small bit seen in the special featurette is the one offered by Magnoli. They offer the wallet, as well as many of the cards expected to be found inside too. The colors are still somewhat unknown, but the consensus is either black or a very dark brown. Next is his belt. This is perhaps the most overlooked aspect, as it just isn't really seen all that much. The closest you can get is to go with a dark brown belt that's 3.175 centimeters or 1 1/4 inches wide with a gold rectangular shaped buckle. However, when viewing certain shots and images, you can make out that there was a small design on both edges of the belt, but because it's so small and often obstructed by other pieces, it's nearly impossible to make out. What was attached to that belt is another story. The holster. It was actually taken from a leather Safariland 1001 shoulder holster made for a 5-inch Smith & Wesson revolver. The production simply cut it down and converted it into one to be worn on the hip. Finding originals are now nearly next to impossible, as they were made in such limited quantities to begin with. However, sellers offer versions on Etsy, with some occasionally popping up on forums and groups. This brings us to the piece de resistance of the whole movie. Deckard's blaster. Also, pardon my French. Without an official name, this pistol has been given many nicknames and unofficial titles, such as the PKD, short for Flagger Steyr Katsumata Series D, but also creatively for Philip K. Dick. The LAPD 2019 blaster, the M2019 2019 Detective Special, or simply Blade Runner Blaster. The blaster itself is made up of two specific firearms, a Charter Arms 44 Special Bulldog revolver and a Steyr Mannlicher .222 model SL rifle. Other items such as screws, LEDs, and so on were also created for it to give it that more original look. Phil Steinschneider, considered an early Blade Runner prop maker, has a fantastic website chronicling some of the early days of IDing and creating many props for the movie. More info on that will be available at the end of the video. Today, kits, 3D files, replicas, and even water guns are readily available. Quality will vary, but if you simply type in Blade Runner or Deckard Blaster, numerous options will appear. To find fully movable and light-up versions, you can check out the RPF, Prop Summit, or the Facebook group Blade Runner Blaster Builders. Though the last one doesn't allow the selling of them, you can find and follow various builds from a wide variety of prop makers and get an idea as to who to follow and where to get your own. Now, with all of the universal items out of the way, we can move on to the scene-specific ones. While working, Deckard switches his shirt 4 times, ties 3 times, and pants 2 times. We'll start with the pants. The first pair seen was one that went along with the sports jacket he wears throughout the film. It is the same color and presumably is made of the same or similar style material. Usually when fans have put together these costumes, they often opt for the other pair because these are very specific and a tad hard to find lookalikes or to replicate. Magnoli seems to be one of the only places to find a pair that is close in looks. They offer it as an add-on for the jacket via a drop-down bar. This pair would be worn with the first and fourth shirts. The second pair was first seen when Deckard performs the Voight-Kampff test on Rachel at Tyrell Corp. Its look is that of an almost charcoal gray, heavier weight tweed wool material. These saw the tweed design in a horizontal orientation by the waist and vertical everywhere else below it, along with larger belt loops. Charcoal tweed pants are relatively easy to source, but if you want to get the most accurate one out there, look again to Magnoli. Now onto the shirts. The 4 of them are seen here. The first was worn while eating noodles and when he's briefed by Brian. The second is worn during the visit to Tyrell Corp, the third when he hunts down and retires Zora, and finally the fourth during the scenes at JF Sebastian's apartment where he encounters Pris and Roy. Now, 2 of these are easily sourced, with one being readily available via many different sellers. However, the other 2 are the exact opposite. So let's start at the beginning. The first shirt, aka Noodle Shirt, is a rather interesting one, seeing a mix of stripes and a sort of swirly design composed of 2 purplish shades. This is one of the 2 that hasn't really been replicated, likely due to its short screen time, darker lighting, and it only being seen on a large scale for the first time via a 2009 Profiles in History auction. The second one, or Voight-Kampff shirt, is the most well-known and easiest to source. Consisting of a darker purplish-black background and an intricate multicolored design with dark pink threads, this shirt can be found anywhere from Magnoli to Amazon and even eBay. The third, or Zora shirt, is also a well-known one because of its more simplistic yet brighter design. Though not as abundant, replicas are out there. Once again, the easiest place to go is Magnoli. Finally, we have the 4th and final shirt, sometimes called the Bradbury shirt, named after the Bradbury building, which played the part of JF's apartment. This shirt is perhaps the most intricate and interesting of the 4. Entirely composed of an angled grid design, this shirt doesn't stand out very well in the mostly dark scenes that make up the end of the movie. But thanks to a 2018 prop store auction, it was finally able to be seen and photographed on a large scale for all who were interested to see. This shirt has yet to see any real large, or for that matter, any scale reproduction, but there's always the possibility someone will down the line. If either are recreated in the future, we'll be sure to update the list in the description. Now, where would a button-up shirt be without a tie? There were 3 worn during the movie. The first, which was seen only with the Noodle shirt, made up of a brown knit material, this tie had a small design on its front and featured a square end to it. Again, because the first look Deckard had was very brief and hard to determine, replicas of this particular tie have really yet to be seen. The second and third ones luckily aren't in the same boat. The next one up is the Voight-Kampff tie. This particular one is the most recognizable and easiest to acquire. Much like the shirt that it's first seen being worn with, it is readily available through a variety of suppliers located all over the internet. It would also be seen again with the retiring Zora shirt later on. Finally, we have the third and final tie, which is seen being worn with the Bradbury shirt. Created of a woven silk, this tie consists of a black background with a white, almost split pyramid-shaped design. Though not as easy to source, it can be found on Magnoli's site as well as through eBay and select other sites. This one is somewhat interesting as the design is very reminiscent of the Tyrell Corporation's headquarters, which may have been intentional to play with the idea that Deckard himself was a replicant. And that about does it for Deckard's look, but before we bring things to a close, there are a few sites, groups, and forums that were mentioned throughout the video that are worth bringing up one more time in a more direct way. Obviously, as mentioned in previous videos, the website and Facebook group for the Replica Prop Forum, commonly known by the abbreviation of RPF, are always great places to start as they provide a huge swath of knowledge and sellers when it comes to props and costumes. Regarding Blade Runner specifically, you'll want to check out Prop Summit and Replicant, the Blade Runner cosplay group on Facebook. Both of these are amazing resources when it comes to putting together anything and everything Blade Runner. Prop Summit is essentially a giant forum dedicated to all things Blade Runner, particularly the first movie, done in a traditional topic thread format. Replicant is primarily focused on the costuming of both movies with a little bit of props sprinkled in, presented as a smaller community showing off their work as well as helping each other out. As an added bonus, if you're in need of some high quality images and references, Replicant has a nice organized album system showcasing most of the costumes of the main characters from both films. Next is Magnoli Clothers, which has probably been hammered into your brain because of the amount of times it was referenced. We do it because they are a company dedicated to creating high-quality reproduction and replica costume pieces for a wide variety of movies, TV shows, and games. Next up is the Facebook group Blade Runner Blaster Builders, which is chock full of references, builds, and all the info you need for the iconic blasters. And finally is props.steinschneider.com, the website made by Phil Steinschneider we mentioned earlier in the video. His site covers all sorts of stories, bits of history, and trivia about the early days of identifying and replicating prop and costume pieces from the original movie From the Wallet to the Blaster. Though an initial box office failure, over the last few decades, Blade Runner has become one of the most beloved cult classics out there. With the movie's first home releases, subsequent recuts, and cultural impact, it has become one of the most influential science fiction movies, leaving quite a mark on pop culture, be it stories, movies, and most recently certain games. You know the one. Aside from its subtle yet deep and elaborate themes and story elements, it has spawned a small but extremely dedicated following of prop and costume makers and collectors. From things as simple as coats and glasses to as vague as apartment tiles, the fans of Blade Runner are like no other. Stay tuned as the follow-up video covering Officer K from the 2017 sequel, Blade Runner 2049, is not far off. If you enjoyed the video, why not subscribe and click the bell to be notified in the future? If not, that's alright. Just be sure to check back soon for more uniforms of the screen, right here on Uniform History. Still here? Well, since you've stayed this long, here's a little fun bit of trivia. Do yourself a huge favor and look up the Danish National Symphony Orchestra's rendition of the Blade Runner suite. Not only is it an amazing performance, but you'll be treated to David Bateson, the man who voices and is the model of Agent 47 from the Hitman video games, reciting some of Deckard's lines from the movie. It's both bizarre and beautiful. Anyway, see everybody next time.